Hello and welcome to the Lift Up Journeys podcast. My name is Katie and I'm one of the founding members of Lift Up Women in Life Sciences, a community created to connect, champion and inspire women from academia through to C-suite across the life sciences industry. I'm looking forward to sharing with you an inspiring collection of career stories from a group of wonderful women who work in leadership positions across the life sciences industry. I hope by listening to these stories, you will feel inspired in your own career and gain the skills, confidence, and knowledge you need to climb the career ladder and break through the glass ceiling. Today, we are joined by the wonderful Debra Webster. Debra has over 30 years of experience in pharmaceutical research and the regulatory environment. She received her undergraduate degree from Virginia Polytechnic Institute and State University, and her graduate degree in pharmacology and toxicology was from Virginia Commonwealth University's Medical College of Virginia. After leaving academia and bench research, Debra joined the US FDA as a reviewing toxicologist and was an inaugural member of the FDA's Division of Antiviral Drugs in the Center for Drug Evaluation and Research. Prior to leaving the FDA, she held a rotation as assistant to the director for pharmacology and toxicology. However, in recent years, Debra has worked as VP of Regulatory Affairs for Blue Rock Therapeutics, a biotech company developing authentic allergenic cell therapies to reverse devastating diseases, where she provided the global regulatory strategy to support accelerated development of Blue Rock's cell and gene therapy platform products. Fast forward to today, Debra is a vice president of Aditum Bio, a VC firm providing funding and support for portfolio companies developing therapeutics. What an introduction that is, Debra. How does it feel to you when you hear it all back like that?
It's like it makes it sound the journey was really short, but it was very long. And when I think back to where I started and where I got to today, it's been a lot of twists and turns and a lot of exciting moments and some amazing opportunities. And it's kind of to hear someone spell it all out. It's like, wow.
I'm sure. And I think for us to really understand you as a person, Debra, it's really important for us to think back to what things were like for you when you were younger. So where was home when you were younger?
So I grew up in the Washington, D.C. area in Virginia all of my life. So hence the going to schools for graduate and undergraduate school in Virginia as well. I really love Virginia. It's a great state. Everything from mountains to oceans, and we took advantage of it all. Did a lot of traveling. My parents are always just encouraging us to be inquisitive and adventurous and so forth, and so that's where I grew up, was born and raised until I moved to Kansas.
Wow. And you spent most of your childhood obviously in Virginia. That
Yeah.
was the reason you chose to obviously study at the university there. What was the dreams for you when you were a child, Debra? Or shall I say, maybe, what did you dream your career would be when you were younger?
Well, I think I tried in a lot of different personas. At one point, I was going to be a dentist or an orthodontist. Then at another point, I was going to be potentially an MD, treating patients actually. But my first probably aspiration was that we used to always watch National Geographic and Jacques Cousteau, and I was determined that I was going to be his assistant.
That is wonderful. And look how things turned out for you. Very, very different.
Right.
Wonderful. How did you land on your degree then? Where did that come from? Was it topics you were good at during the time you were at school or?
Absolutely. And it's kind of sort of a dichotomy because I'm not very good at math, right? Math and engineering, but I love sciences. I love the life sciences. I had some amazing teachers in high school that really inspired me. And, that was when I think I really discovered, you know, that was my passion, that I love learning about, the human body and biology. And it was very much, I think, focused in that direction then, the switch away from oceanography and fish and animals and so forth to the human cell and cell biology. And then when I got to university, I had some amazing teachers down at Virginia Tech, it took, a variety of different classes in the sciences, everything from scientific illustration. Probably my favorite but hardest class was biochemistry.
And your graduate degree, I believe, was pharmacology and toxicology?
Right. So I left university undergraduate with a degree in biology, a BS in biology, and then landed my first job working again at a university, Medical College of Virginia, in the division of medicinal pharmacy development, right? So it was MedChem. So I was running their screening of their compounds in rats. So I was doing that. That was my first job after college. And so while I was there, because I never, you graduate with a degree in biology and you think, oh, I'm going to be a doctor, I'm going to be a dentist. And the opportunities for other careers are not quite so evident. But I was able to, get that job there and discovered the pharmacology and toxicology division was just right above me in the building. And so I got to know people there and said, you know what, this is really what I want to do.
Wow. And you enjoyed that degree the second time around, the graduate program?
Yeah. Oh gosh. Yeah. Because it's heavily intensive work for the first 2 years in terms of, your classwork and so forth. But the way MCV was running the program is that you did rotations through everybody's lab. So you had to go and rotate through each of the different sort of disciplines within pharmacology and toxicology. So there were some true toxicologists, there were pharmacokinetics, PD, PK programs, there were oncology programs. And so you would run through the faculty members and spend a duration there. So you really got exposed to a lot of different things before you selected your major professor and then went on to finish your degree.
Wow. And looking back now, what characteristics do you felt that you showed in your time throughout university that really set you in good stead?
Being, I don't know, inquisitive, determined, persevering. I had a challenge in graduate school where I didn't pass my writtens on the first time, and I was like, floored. But I just persevered, and we retook the exam, and then did fine and passed with flying colors after that. And so I think those kind of things, just like never letting the pebble in the road block you from achieving what you want.
Absolutely. And what came next? Graduate degree complete. Where did you go from there?
So from there, I did a postdoc at the Uniformed Services University of the Health Sciences, which is it's actually the medical college for training doctors. So when you join that university, you are a member of the military. And so I did a postdoc there, and I quite enjoyed that. But I then just kind of pivoted a little, and I was like, is this really what I wanted to be doing for the rest of my life? In a lab, managing a lab, chasing after grants and doing all that. And I was getting a little burned out from that. And I had the opportunity to join the Food and Drug Administration. And so I was like, well, this is really interesting. It's a different pivot. And it was doing more of the research. It was not bench research, right? But like literature research and that sort of thing, sort of the and writing opinions and supporting and reviewing. My first thing was at the food and drug side, doing food and color additives and writing up the opinions for whether or not they would be safe to use in foods. And so I really like that aspect of it, reading the reports, reading the science that other people were doing, and then writing it up and telling it in a story that would support its clearance by upper management, and being able to be used. And those same skill sets were I brought over when I joined the FDA on the drug side of things. And that was what I really liked doing. I liked being in that sort of policy and the regulatory environment, and just kind of that's what sparked me.
Wonderful. How long were you in the food side before until you moved into the drug world?
Just about a year.
Okay, so you did about a year in the
Yeah.
food side.
Yeah, to me it wasn't really the direction I wanted to go in, but they were hiring toxicologists and I fit the bill. But I did get to learn a lot while I was there, and I took advantage of things such as being able to help rewrite the Red Book, which people may or may not recognize, but it was the toxicological principles book that the Food and Drug Administration, CEFSAN, Center for Food Safety and Nutrition, put out, where basically they gave outlines on how to, to run toxicology studies and what the FDA was interested in those studies and how they should be performed and so forth. And so that was a really great opportunity to be involved in, the rewrite of that book. So I always look for, wherever I landed, what are the opportunities that I could take advantage of that were a little different, that were outside of what maybe the job description was. So that was a year to me. I looked at it, this was a pivot to be able to get into FDA. And then I was able to, I had a former colleague at graduate school who was the Pharm Tox director at in the division of antiviral drugs. And then he recruited me to join them. And I was very excited to do that. So that was a quick pivot.
Yeah. And is that where the love of regulatory came from? That first sort of stint in policy back then?
Yes, it really was. I mean, because it's really, I mean, they do call it regulatory sciences for a reason, because it's not just, you really do have to think about everything from the holistic point of view. Everything has a risk benefit determination when you're talking about, the FDA, right? That, the risks have to be weighed in the consequence of the benefits. So when you're on the food side of things, no risk. You can't add anything to your food that introduces a risk. So you take that and then you pivot over to the drug side, where it depends on what the indication is and, what the available treatments are as to whether you'll allow a certain amount of risk for whatever benefit is achieved.
Wow. It's quite a change, isn't it, when you think from going and spending the time during academia and research to going in and working on or with the Food and Drug Administration. It's a very different environment. How did you find it? Obviously, being a young working professional, how did you find the environment joining the FDA?
It's a really close knit group. I just really felt like that there were a lot of people there who were willing to bring me along in my career and give me opportunities. I felt like it was very collaborative and just really great experiences in terms of being able to look at all different kinds of things that are being brought to the FDA, like on the food side of things, looking at everything from contact lens colors to sucralose, right? To food coloring, right? I actually was involved in writing the delisting documents for red dye number 3. So that was really kind of a very fascinating policy sort of determination that I was able to do. And then when I went over to the drug side of things, it was the division of antiviral drugs. It was created to deal with the AIDS crisis, and things were like fast paced. And, really you had to work collaboratively as a group to be able to achieve those kind of milestones that they were looking to, get drugs to patients in need when there was nothing.
And I'm sure you faced many challenges in this role.
The challenges were of time. I don't know. That's kind of, I didn't really feel like, I can't, I don't, maybe I just don't look as challenges as I look as challenges as opportunities. So
Yep.
maybe that's why it's hard for me to think of like, well, what challenges did I face? Because everything
Yeah,
was to me an opportunity to do something new or different.
absolutely. Talk me through how your career evolved with the FDA then.
So I was there, and I loved working at the FDA. I would, if I were still in DC, I would probably still be working for them because I really feel like their mission is incredibly important, and that they really do want to see valuable drugs get to patients in need. So it was very much patient focused. They had a reputation of being obstructionist, right, from the industry point of view, but I never felt that way. I felt like everything we were doing was just to quickly get things to patients in need. And I would, as I said, I would have stayed there if I hadn't had to move to Kansas with my husband and his career opportunity. So I left there. But before I left, I was able to do work with the Judy Weisinger. She was the head of the pharmacology toxicology group on the Cedar side of things. And we were doing all of the ICH guidance documents on, coming together, the convergence documents, so that for small drugs, there was a big push for that. And we were issuing, the non-clinical pharmacology toxicology study document, the guidance for industries, the IC, and just coming up with these consolidated standards. And so that was a really very exciting thing to be involved in, helping to author some of those early guidance documents, those convergence documents. And since that time, it's sort of diverged away from that, particularly in the cell and gene therapy space. You've seen where the global authority, the global regulations are not quite the same, slightly different standards in Europe versus in FDA for which you need to develop the cell and gene therapy. I think we're starting to see that come back together because people saw how valuable it was when we did that for the small molecule side of things.
Absolutely. And there's such a degree of influence, isn't there, in terms of the work that the FDA is doing on a global scale. You obviously touched there upon
Yeah.
with the European regulations and being able to bring everything back together. I think that's a true sign of the work that the FDA and the regulators as a whole are doing to support the industry's development. How has your experience at the FDA shaped and influenced the career that you've had on the industry side since, do you think?
The learnings that I brought forward from working with some really great people has really influenced me to always be thinking outside the box, to push the envelope, to test the edges, right? So I feel like those kind of learnings, and then just the importance of, if you want to get things done quickly and well, you have to work together, as a team. The collaboration is really key. You think about, as an example, when a new investigational drug application would come into the FDA, it would get assigned to a group, and we're each responsible for, reviewing our part of that IND and then coming together to make a decision and opinion on whether it would be allowed to proceed. And this was a 30-day review. And these were like volumes of, depending on how far along the program was. And this was back in the day when it wasn't electronic, and the IND for the non-clinical section would be 5 stacks that would be, about 3 feet tall in your office. You would be reviewing page by page, and in 30 days. So you have to be able to manage your time and to work collaboratively to be able to get that done, so you can have a cohesive response and review.
And I'm sure that's something you've taken into the industry companies that you've worked with since, right? Because if I'm right in standing, once you relocated, once you left DC, you obviously
Yeah.
joined the industry.
Yeah, so I left when I left and moved to Kansas. I was doing private consulting for a while, mostly as a for other larger firms, not as an individual, so subcontractor. So I did that for a while, and loved that. It was nice. It worked easily and fit in with the other phase of my life, which was raising three boys. So I was working from home remotely, 30 years ago when I was
Yep.
doing that. And so that was really good. And that, I learned from that experience, I really learned to have to be organized and to, prioritize tasks, which is really important. And that's something that carries over today into, helping companies as they're going through their development process, is to prioritize what needs to be done first, and to, focus on those things and really figure out that organizational path.
Yeah. And also, when it comes to being organized, the balance between a professional career and personal achievements, because so much of our time as women is spent really helping growing the family, and I think it's very, very difficult to then juggle your ambitious career goals alongside of that, isn't it?
It was, yes, very much so. And, it relied on being able to, have support from, family and my husband and uh, the community too at large, right? So there were a number of my friends who were, there were some, working moms, some working moms working inside the home and some working inside and outside the home. So we were all working. But that was a big juggle, and it was difficult to do. That's again where the consulting really fit in to that paradigm. Once that was my middle child, went off to college, and the second one was ending his high school career. That's when I went back to the workforce, into like an office setting, because I really did miss that. I missed, day-to-day, daily interactions with people, face-to-face time. So I am really a people person. And so I was able to get that opportunity to do that. And it was, I think from that point of view, I took a position with the CRO as a medical writer. So it was a little bit of perhaps maybe
Wow.
a step back that people might think of. But I had been out of the office environment for a while. So for me, it was like, okay, this is a transition back in. And again, I use that as an opportunity to expand my skill set and really learn the ins and outs of clinical trial conduct and the documents needed for that are slightly different than what you need for like supporting your regulatory filing, in terms of, you need a pharmacy manual, and you have to, the ICF review and that sort of thing. So I really learned a whole new skill set by making that transition and taking that sort of temporary spot. Again, I
I'm
did
sure.
look at it as something temporary, that I wasn't going to be doing medical writing.
I'm sure. But I think there's so much to be learned in terms of the medical writing world as it is, and the additional skills that you gained in the time there, that additional knowledge. I'm sure you've used that not just in what you're doing currently at Aditum, but also with Blue Rock too, right?
Oh, absolutely. And this goes again back to the collaborative nature of drug development in, just reviewing protocols and, bringing the experience I had from that, plus my regulatory experience, into, what are the expectations with a particular protocol? What are the expectations with what needs to go into an investigator's brochure? So those being very clinical documents that end up in the IND filing, but they're often they're led by the clinical operations group, right, or the med affairs group. But you had to work together to be able to make those things come to fruition.
Yeah. And it's the collaborative nature of yourself, how you come across in the workplace, but it's also the wide range of experience that you now have too, which is definitely going to set you in good stead when you're part of a leadership team, because that wealth of knowledge that you've gained by working collaboratively with different types of professionals, different subject matter experts, I'm sure that's really helped you when you've been in leadership positions. When did you take on the first leadership position in industry?
So I would say after I left, I was at it was Quintiles, the CRO I was at, and I left them. I was recruited to join Cardinal Health. So Cardinal Health, everybody knows them as they're the supply chain management company, right? And they deliver products to hospitals and so forth. But they had a group, a regulatory affairs group, that provided drug development and medical writing and publishing support to companies. So it was like a wholly owned subsidiary within this very large company. So we operated as a small company within a larger company. And from there, when I joined there, they hired me as a medical writer. So he got me in the door there. But once I was there, it was like I was able to very quickly transition back into regulatory strategy. And from there, I was not doing a leadership position really until the opportunity came along to be involved in the biosimilars, which were just starting to come into patent expiry. So people were starting to develop the monoclonal antibody biosimilars, and so I was asked to take over, and it was a little bit of a step back again because they wanted me to do the medical writing for all of the biosimilars that they were bringing in. But it was a good experience for me because I wanted to get into the advanced therapy area, of which monoclonal antibodies were, among the first, and then transition into like cell and gene therapy. So from that experience, I was able to create the practice for the cell and gene therapy. So it sort of evolved into that. And so from that, I was like the leader of that practice, working to bring groups together to support a particular sponsor that we were working with.
Wow. And how would you describe the leadership style that you learned and you carved for yourself in your time there?
So there, it was very much of the leadership was more of a project leadership aspect, right? So as opposed to a people leadership position, right? So even though I was pulling together a team to support a particular program, and there was like the regulatory lead on that, I was not managing people from that perspective. But what I learned in that situation is that every voice matters, and that you really, again, it's about collaboration. And this is something I always have to teach and remind myself, is that I have two ears and one mouth. I need to be more of an active listener. And I think that that first leadership position in terms of leading these projects kind of helped me to try and do that. And I still work on it constantly. I mean, I think all of us do. We all have these great ideas in our head, and we're like so excited to get them out that we're just waiting for someone to stop talk so we can give our idea. But really, we need to be like actively listening, and we'll get our opportunity to talk.
Absolutely. I could not agree with you more. The two ears, one mouth analogy, I think, is incredibly important because, as you've learned from your time with the FDA and then coming into industry, collaboration is, I think, the key to a lot of success. And being able to collaborate efficiently is being able to communicate well with those individuals. So that's obviously started to shape a lot of people's leadership style, I think, if I was to be honest.
Yeah.
For you, obviously, Cardinal Health was a great opportunity to get back in there, get back in the industry, get some leadership experience as well. Where did you go from Cardinal?
So from Cardinal, I was actually very happy there doing my building out this group, because we'd really started to hire more people and build out the regulatory practice around advanced therapies. And I just picked up the phone one day, which I don't normally pick up the phone. I usually let it go to voicemail. And it was the opportunity, it was opportunity knocking, and it was Blue Rock. And I had was already familiar with them because we were actually trying to get them as a client, and was very excited when this was this opportunity. And so I was like, okay, but it was moving to Boston. And so now it was time for my husband to pay me back in terms of I moved to Kansas for his career, so he moved with me to Boston for mine at this point. And it just was, was a great opportunity. And I jumped at it.
And your husband was on board with the move to
Yeah.
Boston as well?
Yes.
Fantastic. I'm sure he's been a really important part of your journey and being able to
Absolutely.
support your career as well. A number one champion for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wonderful. How did you enjoy your time in Boston?
Yeah, I loved it. I mean, I'm still there half the year. But it was a great opportunity to, I mean, people are trying to recreate Boston across the globe, right?
Yeah.
I don't know what their magic secret sauce was to get them going. They have, could be that they have like a cajillion um, universities in a very small space. But at any rate, it was the opportunity to not just work, with Blue Rock and be part of their journey, but also to interact with so many other biotech people. And there was always, Mass Bio putting on events and so forth, which I found to be really important and critical to go to and meet people and just become involved and see what's happening outside of your narrowly focused vision for what you're doing at whatever company you're working with.
Yeah. And it's a great tool for networking, isn't it? It's being able to hear what other companies are doing in the industry. It's meeting new people. I'm sure that there's been many people you've met at events that you've gone on to keep in touch with.
Yeah, try. That's the best. It is. Everyone's like so busy in their schedules, and but it is important to try and maintain those relationships and expand on them. The opportunity to do this in terms, I think what you guys are doing with Lift Up is one of the things that, what I like about it is like hearing other people's journeys and, being able to make a connection. And I think I've even reached out to people after I've heard them, speak and say, hey, really like what you're doing, and just making those connections. I think is just really important in your career growth and your personal growth.
Absolutely. And over on Lift Up, on our live broadcasts that we do on LinkedIn, we often talk about the power of networking being your net worth because you don't know when opportunity is going to come knocking. You received the phone call out of the blue from the team at Blue Rock, and the opportunity will come, I believe, once you put in a good time and effort into building your own network. I think there's so much value to it. For you
Absolutely.
personally,
Yeah.
Deborah, as well, is it something you're passionate about?
Yeah, and something I wished I had adopted way earlier in my career and didn't really realize the importance of it probably until I was at Cardinal, where we were, working with, so many different companies, right? Because as a consulting, you go out and you have to do some business development and you have to, meet these people and so forth. And that's when the true value of networking really, was the light bulb in my head that came on. And I wish I'd have done that and known the value of that earlier in my career.
Absolutely. And I think particularly for women in the industry where there is sometimes challenges faced, there are maybe hurdles to overcome, and I think that being in a network of women who can support you and be an active listener and someone who can offer you advice and lots of different tips, tricks, talking about their own journeys, how they overcame certain hurdles they faced. I think that's where the power really is. And in order for more women to break through in the industry and to reach their potential and their goals, I think that networking is truly fantastic. I guess for you and your own journey, Deborah, you're now with Aditum Bio, so also a very different side of the industry. How are you enjoying your time there?
It's like I like it. It's kind of back to my roots in terms of what I was doing at Cardinal. In terms of supporting smaller companies, and helping them get to be IND enabling or going from preclinical to clinical phase. I like to think about, when I think of my career journey and all of the positions I've held, they've all kind of been like firsts, right? These positions, like as I said, were like I've always been kind of first. Like FDA was like first was the government regulations, got to learn all of that aspect. And then doing the medical writing, that was sort of a bridge between the government regulations, activities that I had learned, and industry. And then Blue Rock jumping in and being, part of biotech development. So that was my first sort of like, if you want to think industry experience, where I was actually in, part of the company was with Blue Rock. But I did love what I was doing at Cardinal in terms of the different modalities, the different indications, just that sort of more variety, and then just the early stage development was really kind of what I really loved. And so Aditum actually was my son. I got an email, sort of a random email, and it was Christmas, and I was like, my son is in the financial industry, services industry. And I was talking to him. I said, have you heard about this company and so forth? And he he talks to VCs all the time. And he goes, Mom, you should really do that. Wow. So he just, so again, that's another different perspective. So even though I'm bringing my skill set of, regulatory experience to help these companies, I'm now seeing it from a different angle from the VC side of things. And, the funding part of it and what goes into doing a more due diligence, which I did do that when I was in Cardinal for some companies as well. But being able to be like really part of the decision of providing the summary or the information on which we would then make a decision as to actually, purchase the asset and set up a company around it. And so that's been very exciting, and I'm learning a whole bunch of new skill sets.
Wow, it's great to hear that at this point in your career, there's still so much for you to learn as well. I think our life science industry, we evolve so quickly. There's so much going on, and it sounds like the work that you're doing with Aditum is also challenging for you, which I think is great. Even at this point in your career where you've reached the VP level, what's your goals going forwards, Debra?
I am going to enjoy this ride for a while. I would like to be able to bring my broad experience to, a board position at some point in my career. That's probably maybe my next aspiration, I would say, scientific or, a board member, scientific advisory or board member. So I guess that would be, sort of what I would say next. But right now I'm enjoying what I'm doing.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for sharing your journey, your story with us today, Debra. It's been really insightful, particularly to learn how you moved from the FDA and you loved your time there, and it was triggered by your husband's relocation that you've almost sort of started your own journey into the industry side. So thank you for sharing. I wanted to ask Debra, why are you passionate about what we do here at Lift Up?
Because as I really enjoy hearing about other women's journeys, as well, and about how, especially like when you have a panel discussion and you're just talking about a specific topic, you're getting to hear the different viewpoints of people who've worked in that area. And, just hearing those snippets and being able to even, then interact with people afterwards in terms of, hitting them up on LinkedIn and maybe making that connection. And just that, I just really feel like it's a really good platform. And it doesn't have an agenda. To me, the only agenda it has is to provide opportunities for women to learn from each other.
Absolutely. And when we established Lift Up, we were about 15 months ago, we officially launched now. And we really wanted to launch a community that was just value add for women because, as we said earlier, there is such power in networking and such power in community. And it's important to have a surrounding that is supporting you in your own career. And if you can't find that in your internal company with the team that you currently work with, you can find people externally that will support you as well. So there's wonderful power in community, I think.
Yeah. And I think it's really made me also realize the importance of mentoring and mentorship, which is something that I've only recently had the opportunity to mentor people and to provide sort of one-on-one discussions about topics and so forth, and how important that is, and how I wish I'd done that earlier in my career. Right. So, as you're moving through your career, always look for opportunities to mentor someone who's just coming into the field, who, be willing to be that person that will always, answer the question and be there as a sounding board.
It's great advice. If you could look back and speak to younger Debra, potentially Debra at university, what's the one piece of advice you would give her now?
Be more confident. I don't think I'm not confident, but and maybe this is something that just women in general struggle with, is that goes the little bit of the imposter syndrome, right?
Yes.
Is I do have this. I did graduate with honors. I know this stuff. Having that internal confidence a little bit more, instead of the self-doubt.
It's important. It's really important.
Yeah.
It stops the imposter syndrome sneaking in, and it also allows you to really push yourself more, because like you said, you've graduated with honors. You can do this. You know what you're talking about. It's having the confidence and not having the self-doubt. I mean, we all suffer with a little bit of self-doubt every now and again. I think it's only normal, but
It's
if we can,
right, because it keeps you honest.
absolutely, absolutely. But that's wonderful advice. And I think for anybody who's listening to our podcast episode today, it's brilliant advice to stay confident, believe in yourself. And I'm sure I can speak for Debra here. Any of us here at Lift Up, Debra included, would be more than happy to connect with anybody who's looking for advice, just a new connection, even a mentoring opportunity or a coaching opportunity. But thank you from the Lift Up team, Debra. It's been wonderful to be able to speak with you today. So thank you for taking the time, and we really look forward to sharing your story.
Very good. Thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity to chat with you. It was a lot of fun.